The smell of coffee and printer ink filled the air of the bustling office. People were busy typing, phones were ringing, and files were being exchanged like clockwork. In the corner, a young woman named Elena sat quietly at her desk, her face pale and her hands trembling slightly. No one noticed how tired she looked, or how she pressed her hand to her stomach every few minutes to ease the pain. She was the kind of employee who never complained, never spoke much, she just worked. That morning, the Mafia Boss himself, Damian Moretti, had come to inspect the company. Everyone knew who he was: rich, powerful, feared. His name alone made people lower their eyes. The company was one of his many business fronts, and whenever he visited, the atmosphere turned icy. He walked in wearing his usual black suit, his expression unreadable. The moment he entered, silence followed him like a shadow. Elena didn't even look up. She was too focused on her work, and too dizzy to care. The letters on her screen began to blur, and before she could steady herself, the world around her faded to black. The sound of her keyboard clattering to the floor was the last thing she heard. The entire office froze. People gasped, and within seconds, the Mafia Boss himself turned. His eyes narrowed as he saw her lying unconscious on the floor. Without thinking, Damian strode forward. "Move," he commanded, his deep voice cutting through the panic. The employee stepped back instantly as he knelt beside her. He loosened her collar slightly and touched her wrist to check her pulse. It was weak, too weak. "Call the doctor," he ordered one of his men. Now, as they waited, Damian noticed something fall from her pocket, a small, crumpled photo. Out of instinct, he picked it up. It was a baby, a tiny boy, smiling in a faded onesie, clutching a stuffed bear. The edges of the picture were worn, as if someone had carried it close to their heart for a long time. Damian frowned. He flipped the photo over, and his breath caught when he saw the name scribbled in small handwriting: Luca Moretti. His name. For a moment, he thought he was imagining things. He looked again. No mistake. The last name was his. The doctor arrived, breaking his trance. They carried Elena into his private office while Damian followed, silent and brooding. As the doctor examined her, Damian stood near the window, staring at the baby photo. "She's exhausted," the doctor finally said. "Severe fatigue, dehydration, and, possibly malnutrition. She needs rest." Damian's jaw tightened. "How long has she been working here?" he asked his assistant. "About 6 months, sir," the man replied. "She's one of the best. Never missed a deadline. Does she have any family?" "No one knows, sir. She keeps to herself." The boss looked back at her. She was still unconscious, her face pale, her lips dry. Something twisted in his chest, a feeling he hadn't known in years. Guilt, concern, confusion, and beneath all that, an unsettling question: why does she have a photo of a baby with my name on it? When Elena woke up hours later, she found herself lying on a leather sofa in a room too luxurious to belong to anyone ordinary. She blinked, disoriented, and then froze when she saw him, Damian Moretti, sitting in front of her, the baby photo in his hand. Her heart dropped. "Whose child is this?" he asked, his tone calm but deadly serious. She tried to sit up, but dizziness forced her back. "It's mine," she whispered. "Yours." He leaned forward. "Then why does he have my last name?" Elena's throat went dry. She wanted to speak, but words wouldn't come. Her mind spun with memories she had tried so hard to bury. 3 years ago, she had met Damian under completely different circumstances. She was working part-time at a small cafe, and he had come there often, quiet and mysterious. He was nothing like the ruthless man she had later heard about. He had been kind, even gentle. They had shared a few brief months together, moments filled with warmth she never thought she'd have. But then he disappeared without a word. She found out later who he really was, the feared Mafia Boss. And by the time she realized she was pregnant, it was too late. She couldn't let her baby be part of that dark world. She changed her name, moved away, and raised little Luca alone, working day and night to keep him safe. She thought she'd escaped the past. Until now. "Elena," Damian said quietly, "look at me." She hesitated, then met his eyes. They were the same, sharp, cold, but beneath them, a flicker of something real. "Is he mine?" he asked again. Her silence was answer enough. Damian's hand tightened around the photo, and for a moment, he closed his eyes. When he opened them again, his voice was softer, but there was no mistaking the authority behind it. "Where is he?" "Safe," she said quickly. "That's all you need to know. I want to see him." You can't. He stood, towering over her. He's my son, Elena. You don't get to hide him from me. Tears filled her eyes. I did it to protect him. You live in a world of danger, Damien. I couldn't let my child be dragged into that life. His expression darkened, but his anger wasn't at her, it was at himself. You think I'd ever hurt my own blood? I don't know what you'd do anymore, she said softly. For a moment, neither spoke. The silence was heavy, filled with memories of what they once had and what was lost. Finally, Damien exhaled. I want to see him. Not as a boss, as a father. Elena looked away. He doesn't even know you exist. Then it's time he did. That night, Damien personally drove her home. She tried to protest, but he refused to leave her side. When they arrived at her small apartment, he noticed how modest it was, bare walls, second-hand furniture, a small crib in the corner. He walked in quietly, scanning the room like a man seeing something sacred. Then he saw him, Luca, asleep under a soft blue blanket, his tiny chest rising and falling. Damien's world stopped. He knelt beside the crib, his usual coldness melting away. The baby had his eyes, his dark hair, even the same dimple in his left cheek. He reached out slowly, brushing a finger over the child's hand. The baby stirred, then wrapped his tiny fingers around Damien's. A lump formed in Damien's throat. For the first time in years, he felt something pure. Elena stood behind him, watching silently. He's beautiful, Damien whispered. She nodded, tears in her eyes. He's everything to me. He turned to her, and to me now. From that day forward, everything changed. Damien ordered his men to protect Elena and Luca at all costs. He moved them to a safer home, away from the chaos of his world. He visited every evening, bringing toys, food, and stories for his son. The office that once knew him as the cold, ruthless boss began to see glimpses of something different, a man who smiled when he got a baby's drawing on his desk, who took phone calls that ended with, "Tell Luca I love him." But it wasn't easy. His enemies noticed his change. Whispers spread. Some saw the boy as a weakness, a way to get to the boss. Damien knew he had to be careful. One night, when danger came too close, gunshots outside their home, he made a decision. He took Elena and Luca to his private estate, far from the city. "You'll stay here," he told her. "No one will touch you again." Elena looked at him, fear and love mixing in her eyes. "You can't protect us forever." "I can try," he said quietly. For both of you, months passed. Slowly, trust returned between them. Elena saw a side of him no one else did. A man who read bedtime stories, who laughed at his son's silly faces, who promised never to leave again. And one evening, as Luca ran across the garden calling for his parents, Damien took Elena's hand. "I never stopped looking for you," he said. "I just didn't know where to start." Tears filled her eyes. "And now that you've found me," he smiled faintly, "I'm never letting you go again." She smiled through her tears. "You already have everything that matters." That night, as Damien tucked his son into bed, he realized something profound. For years, he had ruled through fear and power. But this tiny family, this fragile happiness, was the only thing that ever made him feel alive. He kissed Luca's forehead and looked at Elena, who stood by the doorway. "She fainted while working," he murmured with a smile, "and I thought it was just another ordinary day. I didn't know that fainting woman would be the one to give me everything I never knew I wanted." Elena smiled softly, "And I didn't know the Mafia boss I was running from would become the man I'd love again." Sometimes fate doesn't knock, it crashes into your life, uninvited, unplanned, and unforgettable. And for Damien Moretti, the baby photo in her pocket was more than a secret. It was the beginning of his redemption.